Hi, everyone. We are back with yet another edition of our webinar series. My name is Barry Wong. I am the head of Asia Pac at Shufti Pro. Shufti Pro is a SaaS provider of eID verification solutions. We are incorporated in UK back in 2017 and has grown into a reputable service provider with over 1,000 customers now, using our KYC, KYB, anti-money laundering screening, transaction monitoring solutions. Back in March, during that webinar, we discussed with an industry leader on the evolution of the compliance requirements relating to KYC AML practices. We talked about the cause of non-compliance, the violations, and various issues with under the international environment. Of course, we drill down a little bit more in Asia Pacific, as well as a number of issues associated with how an organization can improve on their compliance. Today, we will be taking a deeper dive into due diligence trends, including KYC AML, what the future looks like, what the insights and predictions. We will be hearing from my guests. Today is Mr. Dmitry Kuravkin. He is a regulatory compliance professional. And throughout his career, he has worked with a variety of fintech companies at various stages of their development. I will let him introduce himself and his background.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, everyone, as well, for having me here. Maybe shortly about myself, you already mentioned I'm a compliance professional, let's say. I mean, my first interaction with AML KYC was year 2006, I think. That time, if we talk about AML KYC, everything was mostly physical. So it was about physical documentation, the rules about notarization, and so on. From 2015, the discussions in Estonia started regarding the ability to identify clients non-face-to-face, and then I was at the beginning of one of the first payment institutions here in Estonia who started to identify clients non-face-to-face. After I worked in investment firm, being responsible for compliance in 4 different markets, 4 different licenses: Cyprus, Australia, UK, Estonia. I was working with crypto industry as well, so I have a bit of experience. I also will mention that I'm from Estonia. If you know, Estonia was, for example, very famous if it goes to cryptocurrency firms. 3 years back, we had around 1,500 firms registered in Estonia. Now we have different regulation. It's around 70. And it's also about the application of the, let's say, AML KYC requirements. Now we have enhanced rules, we have MiCA. So that is shortly, I think, about myself. And also I want to invite the audience, if you have questions related to Estonia, Europe, KYC, AML, everything you want to ask, just feel free, because we all have different experience. I see that the same rules are applied differently in different firms depending on the form. I mean, if it's a cryptocurrency firm or it's payment institution or it's bank. I mean, so if you have something to ask, I mean, feel free to ask. You can write here in the chat.
Okay. Now, usually we will let our guests to go through, but since as you mentioned, Dmitry, this is more of a dialogue. So, do you want to take questions as and when, or would you like to take questions at the end of the session?
I think if someone wants to ask something, please. Yeah, I mean, you are free to ask. I mean, we can answer. It's depending on the question. I mean, some questions maybe require more time, so we will leave them at the end of the discussion.
All right. In that case, I'll speak to the audience and say, if you got any questions, you can send them through. I will look at them and see when might be the appropriate time to ask the question. So do send us. I think there are instructions as to how you can send us the questions. So just follow those instructions and send us the questions. Now, maybe I should go next just to look at the agenda for today. I'm not sure if we can cover them all, but we're very ambitious.
We'll try.
But
we
will look at
the topic's actually for like 2 months discussion, I think. So let's try it.
Exactly.
To fit it in 40 minutes.
Yeah. So we'll try to tackle all these things like how to tackle the challenges. Obviously, it would help our audience. What would be the ways to mitigate, these risks? What are the emerging technologies that we come across and foresee coming into our way? And we're exploring the deepfake risks and generative AI, which is very topical. Obviously, we want to talk about the KYC trends and the future of AI-powered IDV solutions and the opportunities for businesses, so on and so forth. So I guess without further ado, I will let you, Dmitry, give us your observations and what is your throughout the years you've seen the changes and all that. Can you give us a little bit of your insight and observations?
Okay. I mean, if it goes to, there's like 2 dimensions from my perspective. I mean, we can talk about the effectiveness of the technology, about the development of the technology. Now we have a lot of new technologies, actually, what was developed, for example, during the pandemic. I mean, we are now able to identify person using his eyes or ears or movements or keyboard typing specifics. I mean, this is about technology. Technology actually moved forward a lot if it goes to identity verification. Technology also moved a lot forward if it goes to machine learning. Machine learning, for example, I mean, the problem is you need to have a critical amount of documentation to be able to be effective and so on and so on. This is the technology part. Another part actually is the regulatory part. I mean, the regulatory part is not moving that fast. I mean, if it goes to rules what are applicable, for example, in Europe Union, or if you take, for example, Estonia, giving you the ability to use those technologies, for example, if it goes to artificial intelligence, as I told, we have technologies, but sometimes we are not able to use them because we need to explain to regulator how they function. So 2 dimensions. I mean, if it goes to development of legislation in EU, I can talk about EU. I mean, this is my main sphere of competence. I mean, we are moving forward. The problem what we have now in EU is the wide diversity of the rules regarding the identity verification, even if it goes, for example, to states located close to one another. I mean, Estonia and Lithuania and Latvia, for example, we have different approaches. I mean, for example, in Estonia, you still need to conduct a video interview with the client. I mean, even if you have super advanced technology allowing you to verify everything, I mean, ear size and so on, as I have mentioned, but you have a requirement in the law that you need to do video interview. This actually was one of the big obstacles for firms to remain in Estonia or to apply for license in Estonia, but it's changing. It's changing slowly. I mean, we initiated this discussion already 2 years back locally, and I see that it will change, for example, with the new AML regulation. And this is actually the problem for many fintechs or other companies which are regulated under the AML regulations to be able to cover, for example, all EU markets, because you have very different approaches still if it goes to, as I told you, if it goes to different EU member states. I mean, Germany, Estonia, Italy, Spain, I mean, they all have some specifics, some technical requirements, additional ones, which are, let's say, you need to fulfill locally if you are licensed locally, or you have a critical amount of clients from one or another country. For example, you're licensed in Estonia, but you have critical mass of clients from Germany, for example. So there will be need maybe to apply German requirements for identity verification. This is something what I, for example, faced in year 2016 when we applied for license in Estonia and wanted to onboard clients from Spain. So we double checked in each jurisdiction, is our solution, which was also with the usage of outsourcing provider like Shufti Pro, with the ability to control documentation, is suitable with the Spanish local rules. This is, I think, the biggest problem. What we face now. Regardless the effectiveness of technology, you still need, and you will need to look to the local, let's say, guidances. What are
right. So
specifics.
So if I may just summarize a little bit. So what I've here is actually due to the there is a across Europe kind of basic minimum requirements,
right.
And if I'm not wrong, that is actually because of the EU as an entity. And there are different countries, different nations within
Sure.
which each one of them would have their own requirements on top of
Exactly.
Yeah. So there is one question actually came from the floor, actually saying, you've mentioned Germany, Spain, Estonia, and all have slightly different requirements.
Sure.
Where do is there a database, or how do they search for these regulations in order to make sure, say, for instance, if a company got businesses?
Oh, good question. It's the most challenging part actually for the compliance departments. This is actually one of the reasons, one of the problems what companies had is that insufficient amount of compliance specialists or outsourced legal advisors, for example, because you actually need to check all those requirements state by state. I saw also the question here that what are the sources? If it goes to Estonia, for example, we have all the national legislation translated into English. You can easily find, I can after send the link, where you can find all the regulations translated. You can try to understand them, or you can double check with the government. And the system is actually different with even if you take, I don't know, the problem is, for example, that if it goes to authority who is responsible for certain topics in the EU, it's also may be different. For example, if you take sanctions, sanctions is super important topic now. You need to be able to check the lists and so on and so on. And if it goes to different member states, different authorities may be responsible for the sanction questions. For example, in Estonia, it's foreign ministry, it's maybe different ministry in Latvia. So you need to find all those right sources. You can check the legislation. One approach, of course, is to find a good provider who will be able to advise you with all those local requirements. I don't know, for example, Shufti. If you already did those researches, you can help your, let's say, clients to comply. But of course, you need to double check, because if it goes to responsibility is still on the provider. You cannot fully rely to someone who is advising you. My approach, for example, was when researching different member states is, for example, big four firms. I don't know, PwC, KPMG. Who already have who have wide, let's say, presence in Europe. So you can try that. If you ask, is there any like central database with all the requirements in EU? There is no such, unfortunately. You need to go state by state. You need to check local rules, and the problem is sometimes the local rules are in local language. It's often the situation. So you need to read German law, you need to read Latvian law, and so on. Yeah.
Okay,
There's no good link I can send you. I mean, you need to go step
I
by
guess,
step.
yeah, the service provider also would be a good source as well, of course, because
Sure.
they are in the industry. They should know at least the minimum requirements. So that would be one source. I've got another question. So what's the anticipated role and relevance of the KYC service provider in an environment when governments are increasingly develop their electronic IDs systems? I think I'll take this one. I guess the questions relating to which brings out a very good topic actually, because nowadays we are seeing more and more governments issuing digital electronic identities, and from a service provider's perspective, what we have to do is obviously to make sure that we are connected to it and assist in the identification. So our role would be obviously it's just like one of the service that we provide, which is to make a connection and provide the verification and check against these government's resources. So I hope that answers your question. So, but that's relating to an IDV stuff. Since we're talking about this government IDV situation, what is your view? I mean, obviously, you seem to have lots of thoughts on this already, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can. It's actually. I can tell you when I was only dealing with Estonian providers, for example, year 2010, for me felt that it's like super good way to identify clients is to use local EID solution. Because Estonia is actually, I mean, if you look at our country, I mean, we developed very well functioning e-government already years back. I mean, you are able to do everything with your ID card, with your let's say digital identity. I mean, you can get prescriptions, you can vote even on the parliament elections. I mean, so you can do everything. You can open bank account and so on and so on and so on. But even in Estonia, for example, we, as I told you, we have limitations for bank transactions, which are implemented by local requirements. I mean, if you identify your clients using electronic identity, there is limits where you need to conduct video identification, as I told you. And if it goes to other member states, I mean, it's actually one of the reasons why the regulation is currently under review. I mean, if it goes to EIDAS, 3 years back already, it was conducted research by European Commission saying that actually only 50% of EU people are able actually to use electronic identity, governmental electronic identity means. We have only 14 EU member states now who are actually have this electronic identity schemes. I mean, we have this regulation already starting from 2014, this framework. But if it goes to concrete member states, not all member states have that much developed framework. I mean, this was one of the problems, for example, as I told you, with the payment institution in year 2015, for example. This time, if I remember correctly, I mean, Spain was the country where we wanted to identify clients using the EID, but actually there is no such habit within the population to use EID because you don't have this wide governmental infrastructure that actually, let's say, create this habit for EID. So in those countries, we needed to use like our solutions. Now, EU actually created the initiative of digital wallet. Is something what will be like Estonian-like solution, I would say, where all member states need to create, let's say, digital wallet with the ability to collect all the information around the person in one place, being able to use this information, for example, for using I don't know, banking services, but it actually doesn't work now. As I told you, I mean, even in such developed country as Estonia, I mean, you are able to open bank account with using eID, but it's limited. If you want to, as a fintech firm, for example, want to go to all the member states and use eID as the only means for identification, I would say you will not succeed. You need to use, I don't know, for example, Shufti Pro advice, let's say, be able to explain to regulator that this solution is suitable for like local regulatory framework. But eID is ideal world, in my opinion, but it's not working at the moment. I think my prediction that maybe like, I don't know, 5-7 years this will be realistic. Why I'm saying that? Because we have regulation, as I told you, starts which is effective from year 2014. So it's almost 10 years already we're developing, let's say, this environment which should work for all EU member states at the same level, giving people ability to open bank account, I don't know, to vote, to get the prescription. But unfortunately, it doesn't work at the moment in all member states. I mean, if you go I don't know, to Finland, to Italy, to Estonia, to maybe even Spain now. I mean, it's working there, but it's very, if it goes to, for example, fintech or banking business, I mean, you want to reach EU. You don't want to reach like Finland, Estonia, and Lithuania. You want to reach all member states. And now, unfortunately, it's not the solution. I mean, so the eID, it will be one day, but it's not over EU solution at the moment. I mean, because it's still, like a puzzle. Like,
Do you mean that it will take time for member states to go and fully implement the requirements?
It will take time to fully implement the requirements. This is the one thing. The another thing is it will take time for the creation of those digital solutions, for all different infrastructure, because I think this is the most difficult, to create the habit of using those digital means for
habit dies hard,
because you got used, for example, to do everything in your post office manually by signing things, but you need to have habit, to use your eID for your transactions, and you need to be able, to use those means in your mobile device, for example, because one of the problems what was actually highlighted during the research was conducted by European Commission is that now even countries who have the eID means, they are not all the time working on your mobile device. I mean, so, but if it goes to fintech, the fintech is mostly mobile. I mean, so I'm a bit critical.
Okay, but that's slightly different perspective I have within the region of Asia Pacific. Is that many countries already utilizing that a lot, and the feedback is actually quite good. So it seems that there are different types of perspective as well.
Again, it's my personal opinion, and I see that now the EU member states are still slightly different.
Right.
And even this small difference may be crucial for fintech firms, because if it goes to, for example, onboarding requirements, what actually every fintech wants. Fintech wants smooth, fast.
Good user experience.
Right. And it's very difficult to reach now if you will only rely again on those local eID solutions. It will be even impossible to reach all the EU member states, as I mentioned.
Can I?
It's a good initiation, but it's not working for fintech.
Right. Can I go back a little bit? Earlier you mentioned, I think Estonia also, like Germany, have utilized not just the selfie sort of capture, selfie liveness detection, but also actually required the video KYC as well.
Video interview, right, in Estonia now.
Right. So one of the questions asked by our audience is, what's the difference? So why is it accepted? Obviously, if the country requires it, it would be accepted. But what is your experience regarding the video KYC and
what we have? Why Estonia have video interview requirement? My personal opinion is that we have had problems with crypto firms. As I told you, 4 years back, we've been we've been the first country in the EU who implemented the requirement for license for cryptocurrency firms. But the receiving of license was actually quite simplified. I mean, so there been like few requirements, and the result was that we had like very many firms which actually don't have any single connection with Estonia, only Estonian license, and we needed to, let's say, clean up somehow the infrastructure. So we implemented quite strict rules. I actually don't even see the same video interview requirement in any other member state, because in Germany they have similar requirement, but not the same, because in Estonia it's not video identification where you need to for example, check, like in Lithuania, is the person alive or not? I mean, all those techniques. I mean, but you factually need to conduct interview with the person.
Right. So it's an interactive kind of.
Interactive, right? I mean, so it's not about technology. It's about human interaction for each customer onboarding of the client who is originating outside of EU, for example, I mean, or whose transaction is over 15,000 per month for natural persons. I mean, this is purely Estonian rule, and I believe this will be changed with, for example, AML regulation, which will be it's actually good initiation what we have in the EU. I mean, in order to to remove all those differences what we have in different EU member states. Because now we have directive. Directive opens the door, let's say, the doors for additional requirements. And this is the result what we have now. We have AML directive in EU. AML directive allows, to have additional technical requirements, and each member state has those requirements. I believe that then the regulation will be in place. The difference between regulation and directive is that the regulation is applying directly. I mean, the member states don't need to write it into local law. It's like GDPR, data protection regulation. I mean, everybody needs to fulfill it as is. So maybe this will be also something what will harmonize, let's say, somehow.
Perfect. I think you take us to the one of the questions that is very, very relevant to the agenda, which is, as you mentioned, some of the directives or the AML's authority, which hasn't yet come into effect. It will be going into effect, and now it's a consultation place, and people are still talking about it. The utilization of digital ID and the EIDs, the changes or the requirements from the European Central Bank, and so on and so forth. So with all those on top, which is evolving right now, what do you foresee as being a good strategy regarding how do you make sure you are compliant, and what you have to look out for? And as an entity now, as an organization now, if I want to say, okay, now this stage, something is going to happen. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. The regulations will certainly change the way that the KYC requirements, the due diligence. So, what should be the right strategy now to prepare for it?
It's overall the compliance department strategy, which actually must include monitoring of all those new requirements all around the regulatory framework. I mean, it's not only about the ML KYC; it's about everything, because it's something. I can bring you an example from my investment firm experience. We have had ESMA restrictions, for example, which had only 3 months to comply. So if we would know about them then they was published, I mean, it would have been very difficult, to implement them. So the strategy should be continuous monitoring of various researches. For example, if you take FATF, I mean, the requirements of FATF, they are not directly applicable for the market participants. I mean, so if you are a fintech firm, I mean, if FATF says something, I mean, it's not something you need to do immediately. It's actually, let's say, the framework for the governments after issuing, let's say, guidances for the fintech firms. But I'm always telling to my students, for example, if we have the same courses, I mean, that you actually need to monitor all those as well FATF recommendations and our not directly applicable recommendations, because they actually show the direction to which the local, for example, legislation will move. I mean, you need to continuously monitor, for example, the development of local legislation as well. For example, in Estonia, you are able to see all those bills, I mean, what are under discussion in local government regarding the changes of the law. I mean, you need to provide your opinion to those legal acts as well. You are able to do it for the EU documentation as well. I mean, so you need to have your eyes and ears open. You need to monitor the environment. I mean, because again, if you will have the legal act already implemented and you need to comply, it's maybe late. Why? Because if we're now talking about the let's say fintech firms, or I don't know, any firm now is digital. I mean, you have app, you have your infrastructure which need to be changed, which need to be adapted to the new requirements. I don't know. To this is the one thing. The another thing is what helps you to be successful now is the ability to do your ML processes being compliant, at the same time being more simple for the consumer. I mean, this is something what will help, what can be done with the help of compliance. Again, for me, compliance is not only rules and regulations, it's also competitive advantage, because if you are able to do things in a compliant way, but at the same time easily, and you are able to explain to your regulator that the solution that you are providing is in line with the requirements. I mean, this is something. One more thing to remember is that it's very important, if it goes to all those regulations regarding AML and KYC, it's a very big effort is on the ability, to explain the effectiveness of your means, what you are using in AML and KYC. If you are able to explain that your solution is effective and so on, it's to your regulator to document that it's something which will be super big benefit. It's something what helped, in my opinion, to succeed for such startups as Revolut, Wise, Monese, and others, which are EU-wide solutions, that you have one smooth onboarding process, which is actually covering all member states, and you work with each individual regulator explaining those things, and you interact with the regulators. This also, the recommendation is not to hide yourself. I mean, because what I see often is that providers, they are afraid of regulators. I mean, the regulator, they ask something, so I will, sit quietly somewhere in the corner, not doing anything. I mean, just not being visible. but actually you need to be visible, and this is the approach what, in my opinion, actually is helping you. You have new solution, you go to regulator, you ask, what do you think? I mean, even not ask what do you think, but you go with the explanation. I think that my solution is boom, 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 very good. By those reasons, what do you think? I mean, so this approach
Yeah.
is actually very good, not to hide it.
I totally agree. In fact, in that respect, Shufti Pro actually provides assistance as well to our customers in
This is
order
super
to
important. Yeah, super important.
yes, in order to help them make their regulator understand the extensiveness and the coverage of the solutions that they're doing in order to ensure that they are comfortable that
Exactly.
you're using a right solution to fit the purpose. So that's important.
It's super important. Yeah, sorry, Barry. Let me add one
no
thing
worries.
as well.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it's also super applicable to the AI things what we are currently discussing and all those researches, McKinsey and so on and so on. The one big thing what is actually, in my opinion, is obstacle for the usage of all those AI and machine learning solutions is the ability, to explain the functionality, the logic of those machine learning AI solutions to the regulator. Because before, if it goes to those solutions, what firms they had those Excel sheets that they show to regulator. This is my risk-based approach, let's say. If it goes to machine learning, the biggest problem what I see now is the ability to properly, document and explain to your regulator how this logic behind those algorithms, for example, enable monitoring is working. I mean, to have all these things documented and being able to explain to regulator. And if one firm is able to support clients with those descriptions, it's a super beneficial thing.
Those are very good advice and foresight. So shall we move a little bit towards the technology part of it? And you've seen the evolution of technology, from doing manual to what we're doing now. What do you see the future? Technology is a two-edged sword, right? It can harm you, and you can use that to protect yourself. How you see from the perspective of future technologies, and what are the challenges, and what do you think?
Yeah, right. I mean, I can again talk from the perspective of fintech firms, license application, communication with regulators. I mean, one big problem, or let's say challenges, what I already shortly described, is the ability to explain the effectiveness of technology to the regulator, and the ability to understand all those machine learning algorithms. I mean, how they are, let's say, how they create all those risk scenarios, new ones. I mean, I think this is actually the biggest challenge if it goes to monitoring requirements. If it goes to technology, it's also super important now for technology to be able to monitor and understand the transactions what are done by clients of the clients. I mean, this is new trend. I mean, new challenge for the banks, for example, that they are receiving fines for the transactions of clients of their clients. If they have, for example, fintech firms as a clients in the banks, I mean, they need to be able to monitor the transactions of their clients. So it's the technology need to understand, to diversify the transactions of client and client of its client. This is if it goes to monitoring mechanisms. If it goes to human resources, it's also very important to still have people in place who are able, for example, who are working with those alerts, for example, which are created by the technology. Because what I saw from the regulatory decisions, I mean, when the fines, for example, being granted to the firms, is maybe too big reliance on the technology, because I don't know, have for like million clients, 2 AML specialists, 2 compliance specialists, you have like good technology in your opinion, and actually you don't have a sufficient amount of human resources who are working with those alerts, who are moderating the system, and so on and so on. So far, I haven't seen any, technology which is able to work by itself. You still need compliance professionals who are, giving new modifications, who are writing down all those new patterns. It still will be people involved. Not maybe that much as we have had before with the document verification. There actually people been sitting behind.
But you're absolutely right, because during our last webinar, one of the issues faced by entities and corporations is that there is a lack of knowledgeable compliance people, or even the risk and fraud personnel in order to monitor. The result comes out, you still need the human being to go and look at it and try to solve the problem, right? Try to do investigations and so on and so forth. So if there's a lack of personnel to do that,
it's actually maybe caused, by different. It's maybe sometimes it's lack of these people on the market. It's maybe the reason. Another big problem what I see is maybe the lack of understanding of the seriousness of the topic by the management board. Overall, yeah. Luckily, it's we have a lot of fines being granted for.
Luckily,
for me, it's actually a good sign that. Now, due to all those fines, which are granted to big corporations or even small firms, the people and companies starting, to understand the seriousness of the topic. The one thing is fines. The other thing is, for example, sanctions. All this atmosphere what we have in the EU now. It's a very important topic. You need to have people. You need to invest in the technologies, because if we read all those, fines, what was granted, the majority includes the clause that you need to invest more into your compliance technologies, into your compliance monitoring, document verification, and other things. You have super developed marketing infrastructure, but you have only 1%, for example, for your compliance technologies. But you need to invest more if you want to be regulated fintech in EU market. I think it's not only about the EU market; it's about like all other markets as well.
Yeah, I agree. So now we've also gone through quite a few things. Now, if you run an entity, do you consider all this investment into personnel and the technology and all that as a positive or a negative thing? Do you consider that being this is a cost of doing business? Because in some regions, what I have seen is, like you said earlier, it's the management support is very, very important. Do they want to see that as it's a negative thing, it's a cost of doing business, or alternatively see it as being something to help them grow the business? That's a completely different.
Sure. I believe that as I mentioned, everybody needs to understand now that we are not in the year 2000 or 2005 and so on, where you've been able to do whatever you want. With few requirements now. Now we're living in different situation. You must invest, and as I told you, from my point of view, the investment into compliance solutions, good, measures which will help you to create fast, smooth, but at the same time compliant. For example, onboarding or monitoring solution is something which is your super big advantage. I mean, comparing to ours, I mean, who are, I don't know, slow, who are doing things, identifying clients at the same place, I mean, physically, and so on and so on. This is something which not only the cost for the business, but it's also something which is giving you additional business opportunities, I would say. Because as I told you, I mean, what I see is that actually good compliance solutions is something which helped many startups to succeed, being able to do things more fast, at the same time being compliant and more effective. Because compliance is, again, for me, it's not only, you know, complying with regulation, it's also about being different, being more fast, and so on, because it's your interest to remain on the market, I mean, not to receive fine and so on. It's I believe now the thing how you see the compliance cost is different. It's not the cost, it's investment, I would say.
And what is your perspective? How do you look at the perpetual KYC, you know, sort of a perspective? Do you think companies should take on this as, you know, ongoing, continuous kind of KYC practice on?
Now the situation is again is totally different. If we look at the year 2006 and then we look at the year 2023, it's the amount of measures, amount of technologies what you must have in order to remain compliant. I would say must have is different. You need to, especially this is influenced by the sanction situation, in my opinion, because especially this is crucial for European companies. We have very wide sanctions framework now. We already have 11 packages. You need to understand your client, you need to understand clients of your clients, you need to understand everything. I mean, so you need to monitor, you need daily check your clients for the sanctions lists. As I told you, we have few fines given to banks due to insufficient monitoring of clients of their clients. I mean, so the layers of technology, the layers of AML measures, now we have much more of them, and it's not only now limited to.
How about going forward?
It's wider.
Right. How about going forward? What do you think will happen in next year, 2024, 2025? Let's do a prediction, shall we?
Prediction. Okay. If it goes to EU, the number of sanctions will grow. You need to have more effort on that sphere. If it goes to technologies, you need to look at the digital wallet developments. I mean, if it goes to AML, you need to look at the AML regulation developments, because it will have large impact on your operations in EU.
Right.
If it goes to technologies, again, I told you at the beginning, we have two dimensions. We have super good technologies and we have regulations. You need to all the time look at the both. I mean, if you have new technology, you need to be able to explain that this technology is in line with the regulation. And you need to look at the regulation on the local level as well. I mean, so yeah, technology will for sure be more developed. But it's not that fast with the regulation. So yeah, my prediction is, again, if it goes to AML regulation, I think it's maybe two years forward, we will have more unified, I hope, framework in EU, allowing to use more or less the same solutions in all member states, but it all will take time. I mean, it's not developing that fast. I mean, in 2 years, I think we will have, in general, more or less the same situation, but you need to have you need to monitor it more, because we have a lot of good initiation launched wallet AML regulation, which will influence your fintech, let's say, in future. So you need to continuously monitor those things. This is my prediction. I mean, and again, prediction is that one more prediction is you need to invest more into your compliance solutions, because you need to monitor more, you need to turn more attention to the identity fraud. This is also one of the problems in EU, a lot of those scenarios in use. So one of the prediction is bigger investment into your compliance solutions.
Perfect. I think this gives us a good closing, and hopefully we'll have a look at it next year and see whether your predictions are.
Let's try. Sure, it's my pleasure.
There isn't any more questions on the floor, and I really appreciate your observations and your insights, Dmitry. I really appreciate that, and thank you, the audience, for staying with us for some time. Hope you learned something. I'm sure you learned a lot from Dmitry, and if you have any other additional questions, please send an email to me, barry@shuftipro.com, or to Dmitry. I will forward it to him if you got any more questions. But after all, thank you very much. It's a good session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.